let's just watch and listen to the Marine and the Military Honor Guard as they carry Congressman Lewis's body out.
Ready, step. 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 Forward, march.
All right, you've been watching the casket, the solemn ceremony of John Lewis's casket being taken from the Capitol Rotunda to the hearse there that you see on your screen by a military honor guard and, of course, members of Congress there on the steps of the Capitol paying their final respects to Congressman Lewis one last time before his body is taken home to Atlanta, Georgia. Antjuan Seawright is standing by, watching these images with us. Antjuan, your thoughts as we watch these solemn images of Congressman Lewis leaving Washington for the very last time?
You know, Vlad, it's a gentle reminder that to this point in my political lifetime, every time the American experiment has had to recalibrate or has had to have a hard reset, John Lewis has been one of the persons pressing the button or helping to orchestrate the reset in the American experiment, all for the better, all for the good. After tomorrow, we will no longer look to John Lewis because he would have taken his final stop tomorrow in Atlanta to help do that. And so that's a reality. It's a reality for my generation. It's a reality for his generation. And it's a reminder for future generations that we have to take up the mantle. You know, I wrote in my op-ed piece when John Lewis died that when great trees fall, new trees will sprout around the trunk, not to grow as weeds, but to grow into great trees themselves. And that's what I love about John Lewis. He was all about planting seeds for the next generation to grow up and carry on the work that he started. We're seeing that. We've seen that play out through some of the recent activity in the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen that play out throughout the course of history. And I think that's what people will remember John Lewis by.
You know, to that point, at times, Antjuan, once people pass, sometimes their spirit and their legacy continues to grow, and they can have even at times greater influence in the future. And so much has been made about John Lewis and his role in some really pivotal moments in the civil rights movement of the past. But even with his passing, as activists look to his legacy and think, I want to be like John Lewis, what would that be? What sort of activism are we talking about?
Well, I think one is continue this trend of nonviolence activity can be very productive American activity. That's what John Lewis really built his legacy around, nonviolence, when he was trying to help shape what this country looked like. But also, he had a reputation of not only crossing bridges and helping repair bridges, but he had a reputation of building bridges, whether that was building bridges with people who did not look like him, think like him, have the same mindset or politics as him, or even bridging generational bridges, meaning bringing two different generations together, all for the same cause. I think we have to sober ourselves around the fact that some of the very same causes that John Lewis crossed the Selma Bridge for, some of the very things that he was arrested for, we're still fighting many of those battles today. So it's so important that we remind ourselves that the work is far from finished. We've made tremendous progress, but there's still a long way to go. And the truth of the matter is, if we're not careful, and if we do not sit ourselves on the thinking and the mind frame of John Lewis, we're going to still be fighting those battles for generations to come. So I think that's important. I would call John Lewis's work the unfinished business of America, because until we finish the fight that he and others started, America's business will never be finished.
So then I guess the question that I would have, Antjuan, is given that John Lewis and with C.T. Vivian, who coincidentally passed away in the very same day that Congressman Lewis did, the sort of old guard of those leaders, those towering leaders from the civil rights movement, are slowly leaving us. And I wonder, do you see a moment or an individual that has received that torch from John Lewis to a new generation, as President Kennedy once stated, you know, the torch being passed to a new generation? Has that happened?
Well, you know, I don't see us leaving us, Vlad. I see them as transitioning to a different role, because I'm a firm believer they will be looking down, monitoring our work, giving us cheers, tapping us on the shoulder when we're not doing everything we need to do in the manner in which they would have done it. So I'm a firm believer in that. But I do believe the mantle has been passed. I do believe the work continues to go on. And I think that has happened over time. For every young John Lewis, there was a younger John Lewis being prepared. For every C.T. Vivian, and we can go on through all the names of the history we'll remember, and some history will not remember. There were people being prepared to take on the work and help to finish the race. And that's the good part about what I believe those who started the movement were very intentional about. about preparing people as we go. Because my dad would always tell me when I was younger is that your true legacy will not be defined by the work you were able to do, but the work that was done after you're gone and how successful the next generation will be. And I think that's what people remember John Lewis by.
So even though he has passed on, there's a key piece of legislation that he was instrumental in pushing that is still sort of hanging out there that needs a vote. It's some voter rights act legislation. The Democrats have really encouraged Republicans to vote on this as a way of honoring John Lewis. We heard yesterday the Attorney General begin his statement in front of the Congressional Committee referencing John Lewis, praising him, and then sort of folding it into his testimony about the justice system. And later on, a few congressmen kind of chastised him a little bit, particularly when the Attorney General, refused to say that systemic racism within policing was a major problem. He said, well, it's sort of complicated and there are many other factors. It would simplify the problem to blame it strictly on systemic racism. I'm wondering just how you have felt kind of listening to a lot of the praise that John Lewis has been getting from, across the aisle. Well-deserved praise because he was very good at working with all different types of people and working with Republicans. But then sort of the disconnect in a way that many might see as a disconnect when, protecting the rights of voters seems to be so challenging.
Anne-Marie, I'm at a place in my life where I would much rather see a sermon than hear a sermon any day of the week. And so when I hear Republicans and others praise John Lewis, but yet their actions taking away the right to vote or trying to suppress the right to vote for people who look like John Lewis or not expand opportunities to vote, some of the same fights that John Lewis fought, part of the reason he almost died. It's a great reminder that they are just trying to hoodwink the American people or bojangle them, as we say in South Carolina, about what they really feel. At the end of the day, voting rights will go down always as the most consequential issue of my day, just as it was the most consequential issue of John Lewis's day. Without voting rights, we cannot get to healthcare, education, infrastructure, all the things, wages, all the things that will make this country ultimately better and move people from the have-nots to the have category. None of those things matter if we do not have free and fair access to the ballot box. And so August 6th, we will celebrate the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, yet we still have Republicans in this country trying to suppress and take away minorities' right to vote. We see it in Florida with the poll tax. We've seen the lawsuits all across this country being implemented because they are constantly trying to take away our right to vote. Yet we sit in hearings and we see them in interviews praising John Lewis for his work, but yet they will not honor his true work and what he really wanted to accomplish.
All right, Antjuan Seawright, thank you so much for joining us. I know for you, it's even though often we're talking to you about politics, it's about much more than politics when it comes to John Lewis. I know that you see him as an inspiration, as many people do, and I really appreciate you joining us here today.